Good morning, friends. Today we will continue about Selenium framework. Yesterday we talked about Selenium part 1, that is about tool suite. So we will talk about more details regarding the Selenium. What are the supporting environment for Selenium? This is mind mapping. Let's talk about this. First, we have four supporting environment of Selenium. First, we will talk about operating environment. So, what are the operating system they are supported is Macintosh, Linux, Windows operating system, Apple operating system, and there is a UFT, formerly known as UFT, only support the Windows operating system. This is for your information. So operating system, we have talked about four different supporting operating system. So we will talk about application environment. What are the application is supporting? We have four types of application environment: GUI based, command user interface based, Windows based, web based, and mobile based. Windows based it only support Windows web based application, but what about mobile based? It support not all support native application, hybrid application. It will not support all the application, but it support web applications only. Like it support specifically web form is supported in UFT. UFT is Windows support only Windows based. So this is the main application environment for Selenium. So we will talk about programming environment. Programming environment means it support all the kit languages like PHP, Python, Java, C Hash, Ruby, Perl. It support all the programming languages. So we talked about the details in the previous video that Selenium IDE doesn't support any programming languages. It supports only Selenium command or Selenium command. That is the purpose of Selenium IDE. Both Selenium and Selenium are little different, but it support the IDE format, and this is not an ID but a web-based format. You need to use Eclipse ID to run and execute test cases. So we will talk about the web browser environment. Browser, it supports most of the browser from starting from Google Chrome, Mozilla Firefox, Internet Explorer, and Safari or Opera. So more information is Selenium ID supports only Firefox browser, but Selenium support all of the browser required topmost browser. So we talked about the Selenium supporting environment. So we will go to Evernote. We talked about this operating environment. We talked about that. What are the operating system? So it support it only UFT support only Windows operating system. So next point is we will talk about the Selenium license. Since it is an open source, it's free, and there is no license, and that is serious license associated with it. So it has been come under the Apache 2.0 license. What are the features of Apache 2.0? Anyone can download or use all the Selenium projects free of cost. There is no need to pay for anything. They can contribute to that project. Anyone can modify the source code or distribute the source code. But what is the issue here is we cannot distribute that. We cannot sell the modified code. That is the only limitation, like seriousness of Apache 2 license. So this is the license, Selenium license. In 2TP RFT, we have more license based. It is not open source, nothing but vendor based programming. HUTP 2TP is supported by HUTP and RFT is supported by IBM. So it comes along with the license which we need to pay for that license. We have their support. We have everything in that. In this side, we don't have any support we don't have any certification associated with Selenium. But some companies offer Selenium certification, but it's not a valid certification. But in HP and IBM, they are offering some valid certification. Those who complete the certification are considered in IT environment. I mean IT companies, they will consider those certifications. So what are the testing frameworks used in Selenium? One is JUnit and another one is TestNG. JUnit is unit test framework. Both are open source, not belong to any software test suite. JUnit supports functional and regression testing, like it adds a test runner in Selenium. And TestNG, it's also inspired by JUnit, but it has some more advanced feature. So many testers use TestNG for the testing purposes. What more advanced feature is, it has support for grouping of test cases and executing the series of tests. And it also generates a detailed HTML XML test report, which is a limitation in the JUnit. It had been overcome by TestNG. So we will next topic we will talk about a plugin. In plugin, in Chrome browser or Internet Explorer, we don't need any plugin like inputting tools. Since they have inbuilt feature like developer tools where you can input element or identify object. Simply you can type or press F12 button in Chrome browser. It will display a developer tool. Whereas in Firefox, we need a Firebug and Firepart plugin to be installed into the browser. So those plugins can be used to input the element. And this is just optional. This is inputting element in QTP has supported by HP, and this is object py suite. So and this is already talked about. What is the browser drivers for cross browser testing? For Google Chrome, we need to download a browser drivers and test the driver part in test script. Like if you want to test part, means you need to separately download the browser drivers, then it will only be useful for browser testing. For Firefox, it has inbuilt, there is no need to worry about that. And let's come theoretically based Selenium environment setup. Selenium environment setup we will talk about in practically in later session. So today we will talk about how to set up the environment theoretically. First we need to choose a Selenium tool. This is the first step we need to follow. And once you choose the Selenium tool, Selenium WebDriver is required to create a test case, and we need one programming language like has a Git programming language. We are taking that example for that purpose, Java, and we need one test runner, that is a TestNG framework, which is an enhanced version of JUnit. For Mozilla Firefox, we need to inspect element. We need a Firebug or a Firepath plugin. And for Chrome and Internet Explorer, we need a browser driver to install any browser device and test their path. Let's talk about configuration of Selenium. So before configuration, first we need to install and download and install Eclipse IDE and extract those folders. And once you install that folder, you can directly run. But before that, we need to download a JDK, a Java chapter, and you need to install again and set environment variable, path variable. Why we are using this we can set the global whenever you want to try executing for another project. We need not set one more again. We can set the overall a global level. It is like a universal level where you can execute the Java project in easy way. And after setting that environment variable, we need to download a web driver along with the Java language binding, because we have separate web driver for Python and separate web driver for Perl, for Ruby, for C#. Since we have taken Java, so we are taking Java language binding. It is to be taken from selenium.org. This is the main website for to download this Selenium web driver. Once you download that Selenium web driver, add that GAR file to Java project in Eclipse IDE. Then you may have already installed those plugin and browser driver. Then you can inside inbuilt we have inbuilt feature to install anything inside Eclipse IDE. Inside that IDE you can search for TestNG testing framework. You will directly install that. This is how we need to configure for Selenium. So this is all we talked about configuration. So we will talk about advantages of Selenium. Actually, we've talked about in brief. So today we will talk about in detail way. So what is an advantage? It is an open source charter. For example, we need not need any license like it is Apache 2. But we can redistribute. There is no complexity involved in that chapter. For example, this is a node various UFT from HP's vendor-based chapter. You need a license to use those chapters. This is the main advantage of Selenium. So we already know that it supports various operating systems, browsers, programming environment. And it also supports a parallel test execution, and it uses fewer hardware resources. Fewer hardware resources means if you have less hardware resources means it will boost performance. That is the main benefit for Selenium. So when we talk about the disadvantage of Selenium, it supports only the web-based application and no reliable support from anybody, because this is an open source starter. In this side, various UFT, it is a HP based vendor. Any customer from or client employee from HP can verify every doubt, or they are the responsibility to provide any customers provide solution to customers, and they will clear the doubt. But in Selenium, since it's an open source software, it don't have any reliable support from anyone, and it has no centralized maintenance of element and object. It is we already seen about that in the previous video itself. difficult to set up the environment because we need to configure everything, download everything, and then install in one by one. This is a complicated purpose. But in QTP RFT we have everything in setup itself. We need not install separately, and that is a ready-made starter. So that is the main point, and difficult to use. We need to know many languages how to use that particular tool. And in image-based testing, we have a limited support for image-based testing. Some new features may not work properly because it is in development stage. So we have no tool integration for test management. Tool integration like UFT can integrate with like ALM for test management. This is the main point. And we don't have that features in Selenium. And for report generation also in Selenium itself, we need to use the testng or JUnit for Selenium side. So this is the main purpose. No, we don't have inbuilt reporting facility. So as we talk about the advantages and disadvantages of Selenium, so let's talk about what is the difference between Selenium and UFT, because one is open source and another is vendor-based software. First most difference is open source and vendor tool license is also required. And in Selenium we have it supports various operating environment like Linux, Windows, or every Apple operating system. We have everything. But in QTP we have only multiple Windows, means Microsoft Windows only supported. This is taken from GG Reddy channel, sir. He is my finalist. So support various programming environment, like it support all the kids programming languages like Java, C#, PHP, and Perl, Ruby. We have everything. But in this UFT we have only VB script only. We already know it has no object repository, and in UFT it will inbuilt local and shared object repository. For reporting feature in Selenium, we use JUnit or testng for report generation. Whereas in UFT we have inbuilt reporting feature. So when we talk about Selenium WebDriver, it has no IDE but have a programming interface. And whereas in Selenium IDE it has no programming interface but it has IDE. That is the difference between the IDE and WebDriver. And UFT has both. You can use both. Use a fewer hardware resources. We don't have any. We have only documentation for the Selenium, and it uses fewer hardware resources. Since it in QTP we have inbuilt support. We have inbuilt everything. So we need to install inbuilt software. So it uses more hardware resource. This is 8 point. We need not we need no introduction. It's difficult to set up environment and use, and it is easy to use. And in UFT everything had been set up for you. And in this side it has limited support for image testing, and in UFT it will have rich support. So as we talked about earlier, it has no reliable support and it is supported from HUTP. Tool integration, it is has integrated with the ALM for test management. But in here Selenium, no test integration for anything like test management or test support. We don't have anything. Some new features may not work properly in Selenium once it is in development stage, and here it will work properly because they have a separate team for managing workload, and they have separate way of doing, since it's a vendor based software. Here Selenium, we don't have any add-ins for supporting application environment, and here add-ins are required because like for reporting environment we need to install that inside the inbuilt starter. We need to install one, then we can use and support the application environment. Here it supports only web application, web apps, or in mobile itself it supports particular web form, but not all the hybrid application. It will not support anything in this. It support both desktop and web application. So here we already talked about certification in between the two. If we got a certification in HUTP from HUTP, so it will be added value certification. But here if you did any certification from the outside source, then it will not have a value. That is it's not supported from IT industry. Okay, that's all for today. So tomorrow we will continue about the Selenium basic. So thank you.